I just bought the ultimate family adventure vehicle. This here is my 2010 Lexus GX460. It's an absolute beast. I'm super excited to have it. Now, I had three requirements that would make this the ultimate family adventure vehicle. First off, it has to be adventure ready. Second off, it has to have room for my whole family and all the gear that I'd want to carry. Number three, it has to be affordable. I have a young family, I don't have a lot of expendable income, so it has to be something that's not going to break the bank and it's going to last me for a long time. Keep watching and I'll tell you why this vehicle checks all three of those boxes better than any other vehicle out there. All right, so now I'm out here wheeling on some pretty average two-track in my area. Got some nice hills, some rocks, some gullies to go through. This is pretty standard fare for a trail you'd see out here. This is a pretty good test of what an adventure-ready vehicle should be. So there's a couple of things that I'm looking for when I think of an adventure-ready vehicle. There's a couple main things I have in mind. There's ground clearance, there's articulation and traction. Basically, how well does my vehicle keep all four tires on the ground? If you don't have all four tires on the ground, you're losing traction, and it is far more challenging to get up and over obstacles. So, in addition to those two, I'm also concerned about reliability of the vehicle. How easy it is to repair, how consistently it's going to have issues, how easy parts are to get. All these things factor into the reliability. It's a pretty legendary characteristic of Toyotas and Lexuses. So for me, that's a pretty high importance and pretty high quality for this particular vehicle. It is not something you want to mess around with when you're out in the desert, dozens or hundreds even miles away from a repair shop or a parts store. Finally, the availability of aftermarket parts and upgradable equipment. You know, how much can you tailor your vehicle to be off-road ready, overland ready? How many different options for a particular component, or how many different components of the vehicle can be upgraded or even replaced. That's a pretty big deal for me. So as far as on my vehicle, the ground clearance, I wouldn't rate it super high. You know, it's not the most I've ever seen, probably not the most of a stock vehicle, but it's decent, it's respectable. The under the front diff is definitely somewhat low at stock ride height. Under the rear diff, there's not really anything you can do about clearance there other than putting bigger tires on it, which, you know, it's on the list of things to do, but we're not there yet. Also, one area that I've noticed is where the exhaust crosses over. It's like right under the transmission. That's kind of low-hanging fruit, which I'm not a super big fan of. So that's kind of more of a breakover situation, a high rock in the middle or cresting over something. That could come into play of being an issue, but I haven't run into that super significantly on these type of trails. If you're trying to do something Rubicon level, as I say that, I walk into something. Oh, boy, ironic timing there. A front camera would be pretty nice for this thing sometimes. Let's see if this is a better line. Yeah, much better. Not even sure what oh yeah, there's a nice little embedded rock right under the center there. Got to remember, pick out your line before you get there. But yeah, so underbody clearance, as I just proved, not the best feature of this. However, traction and articulation is pretty impressive for a stock vehicle. One of the major things that helps the articulation is the KDSS sway bar. For those of you who don't know what that is, it's basically a sway bar both in the front and the rear, that are mounted on one side by a hydraulic cylinder. I believe it's hydraulic and not pneumatic, but I could be wrong. Either way, it's on a movable cylinder. So instead of having fixed points and just twisting and flexing with the axle, at certain speeds, which are controlled by a computerized system, it'll actually let those sway bars flex and give you a lot more articulation than just the actual stiffness of the sway bar. So that's that's actually one of my favorite features about this vehicle, because it lets you have the stiff sway bar experience that makes your on-road comfort and handling super good. But then when you get into stuff like this, where you're fully flexing out and where you really need to keep your tires in contact with the ground, it'll loosen it up and let you do that. So that's a big thing for traction. Also, just the suspension configuration of this vehicle being independent front, solid rear axle. It's, in my opinion, the ideal suspension configuration for a vehicle like this that's got daily driver duties, but that you also want to have some pretty decent off-road chops to get you through a trail. So that's kind of the major things that make this have good suspension, have good flex. Something with four-wheel independent suspension wouldn't be as good, in my opinion. You know, something like a Jeep Cherokee or any Land Rover product. It'll flex, but not as much as a solid rear axle. And obviously, independent front, not going to flex as much as a Jeep, but like I said, this is a daily vehicle too. Speaking of flex, we're going to get some... that is more flex than I want to shoot for, honestly. Pretty significant gully there, so we're gonna dodge that. Yeah. So that's what makes the flex and the articulation one of the best features about this thing. Also, a traction, as I hear it clicking there, it reminds me the A-track traction control. Now, traction control is definitely not unique to the GX by any means. Lots of Toyota products have it. Lots of off-road vehicles have it. Basically, the only thing that's keeping you from slipping out your tires on most off-road capable vehicles. So it's not unique to this vehicle, but it is really good on this vehicle. It keeps you from totally losing traction on wheels coming off the ground, keeps you moving forward, gets you out of a sticky situation. So in combination with the other things I talked about that I feel are superior on this vehicle, it gets you through some pretty significant trail obstacles that, you know, on an older vehicle without a traction control, or on a vehicle without as good of a suspension flex and suspension configuration, you would be spinning tires for sure and not making it up where you want to go. So that covers the suspension and the clearance that make this vehicle awesome for this type of stuff. Reliability, like I talked about, it's a Lexus. I would trust this thing to not give me debilitating issues while I'm out on a trail or an adventure, pretty much more than anything else. I've had a Toyota 4Runner for 50,000 miles in about 4 years, and I beat the living crap out of that thing and did not do it any favors. Should we try that? No, that doesn't go the way I want it to. I think we will actually flip around here. I bet you I hit the camera in the back again. Oh well. Yeah, the 4Runner I had honestly gave me minimal reliability issues for all the things I put it through, and it already having 240 something miles on it, 40,000 miles on it when I bought it. We'll do a quick walk around here. Pretty good example of this thing flexed out. You know, these are the type of gullies that you're going to see on the trails that I run. You know, you're having to cross a washed out gully. One tire is totally drooped. no traction. One tire is totally stuffed. And I don't know if we can see it. If I was on the other side, no, you can't see it. The front you might. I was going to show you the sway bar cylinder. There you go. So that's right there is the sway bar cylinder. So that thing droops all the way out. Lets you droop this tire pretty far. And you can see the difference there. It's pretty good. So combine that with A-Track and you can get through some pretty gnarly gullies. All right, let's we're gonna put her in first. I'm in 4 low, diff locked, so we should. We're gonna reverse. You may hear the fighter jets flying around me. I live near. Come on, A-Track, do your thing. Sometimes it works. It does feel like a bit of a specific to me issue. There it goes. Spinning, spinning, moving forward, moving forward. There she goes. So I'm still learning how to get it to really activate. It does seem like keeping some momentum moving forward does help it. And just letting it spin for a little bit. It doesn't lock in as soon as I would like, but compared to just spinning tires forever and ever, it's not bad. And we got out of the spot, so that's what matters. So yeah, we went over suspension stuff multiple times. We've seen it happen. Reliability, talked about that. I've also had multiple family members with high mileage Toyotas, and honestly, they have a lot of trust in my book. So part of that is personal experience and opinion, but it is backed up by quite a few people out there, and many adventurous people that you know and see rocking 4Runners and Tacomas. I feel like that lends some reality to it as well. Seatbelt's locked again. So the final point is regarding aftermarket parts. How much is available to upgrade, to tweak, to customize your vehicle to make it what you want, to perform how you want. Now I've mostly owned Toyotas, so granted I am a little bit biased in what I've seen, but there is a ton of aftermarket stuff for Toyotas. Definitely, I'm not saying it's more than, Jeeps or Ford Broncos or some of the other stuff that's out there, but for things in its class, Tahoes and Pathfinders and even some of the other Toyotas, this is basically a 4Runner platform. So the 4Runner and the Tacoma pretty much have the most stuff that is out there that you can get. So from what I've seen and what I've searched for, the amount of aftermarket support for this thing is awesome. You can build a crawler build, you can do a overland build, you can do a desert basher build, you can make a hunting rig, whatever your style of off-roading and customizing is, you can find something. It wants me to die. There we go. Good Lord. Come on. All right. We die. Don't judge me. Yeah, whatever kind of off-roading you do, there's mods to support it. Anything you can find, and there's 5 to 10 different brands that will build any type of component. So it's awesome. One of my favorite things about this vehicle and the fact that it shares platform with the Tacoma. 4Runner. This is not a pickup truck. So now we're here in the interior. For this to be my ultimate family vehicle, it has to be good to drive every day. And I have been driving it every day. I drive it to work, I drive it on family outings. I've even taken several road trips in it since I've had it, and it's been awesome at all of those things. It's super comfortable and nice to drive every day. It handles well, it's quiet on the inside, it has plenty of power, it has all the, I'd say 90% of the modern convenience features of a modern car. I mean, it's got some of the top things for me. It's got memory seats, you'll see the buttons there, and all the fun electronic stuff here. It's even got heated and cooled seats, and for me, I get a little sweaty downstairs in the summertime, so cooled is great, and for keeping you cozy in the wintertime, having both is super awesome. It also has this amazing screen, which is pretty, it's not amazing now, but for a 14-year-old vehicle, it's good size. It does okay, and I've been able to upgrade it so it has Android Auto and Apple CarPlay, so I can use my maps and my music and use the buttons on my steering wheel. It's got all the modern features that I like. And my wife even likes driving it, so it really can't get much better than that. So, not only is it nice for the driver, it's nice in the back as well. I've got plenty of leg room. Ignore my broken seat back here. I've got plenty of knee room. I've got several inches of headroom, and it fits me really well as a 6-foot tall adult man. It also fits a rear-facing car seat really well, which is important for me right now. It's also awesome. It has rear AC controls and vents all the way back to keep all the back seat boneheads happy. It has a little armrest here. It's got seats that can recline, and they can fold forward so you can access the third row. Well, now I'm here at the back. You can see all the cargo space. I've got a pretty average load for me and my family for a day out or a small camping trip or a road trip. Got room for the stroller, cooler for all your food and drinks, some off-road stuff, some emergency gear, a chair. Obviously there's room for more in here, but it's a good amount of space with the rear seats folded down. And I said rear seats. It is a 7-seater, so all we have to do is clear away all this stuff. And now all I have to do is come over here and hit these buttons, and magically 2 extra seats rise from the rear. So if we decide to go out somewhere with the grandparents, or if my wife and I decide to have a whole basketball team worth of boneheads, we've got room back here. Flip these up. There's not really much cargo space left, so you kind of have to choose kids or kit, but it's really nice to have that flexibility as an option. Now if I want to get in the back seat, it's not the easiest. The seat does slide forward a little bit, which is nice. Then I just have to weasel my way back here. Now, the seat in front of me is slid all the way back, and the knee room is not great, and my head is touching the ceiling. But this seat is stuck. Stand by. This seat is slid all the way forward now. Yeah, still sucks. I would not ride back here as an adult unless it was for about 20 minutes. But for some little rugrats or an emergency situation, not bad. What does this button do? What? I just found out this has a motorized recline feature on the back seat with a little button here. Does it work? Oh! I don't know if you can see this. All the way back. I'll sit in it. This is my gangster lean. This is my scoliosis. It feels unnecessary, but I appreciate them for adding it. And there's cup holders. Ugh. Oh God. It ain't pretty, but it's for kids. It also has a really good cost of maintenance. This thing's almost 15 years old and is over 200,000 miles. It still runs great. I haven't had to do much more than regular service, and it's just Toyota parts, so I'm not too worried that anything's gonna go out and leave me with a $5,000 repair bill. Fingers crossed. It's also great to drive in all weathers. It's got full-time all-wheel drive and obviously low range, so it's good to drive in all weathers, rain, sleet, snow, or shine. It's got tons of airbags, traction control, and ABS. It's always sure-footed. It's a beast. So there you go. For a daily driver, I really don't have any complaints. I've driven some vehicles that make you pretty tired and not really want to drive anymore after a day of driving. This one, I always feel rested. I don't feel stressed. I feel like I had a good time. It's awesome. It's good for daily. It's good for trips. It's good for carrying stuff. It's awesome. Okay, so let's talk about affordability, right? There's hundreds of vehicles that I could have bought for a similar price to this one. A pretty new 5-seater hatchback would be a pretty similar price. Some of the ones I were looking at was a little bit more, but in the same general price range, right? So why did I choose this big hefty beast? Well, like I said, it's awesome for what I want it to do. And it's a Lexus, so the long-term value and depreciation, I think, are going to do super well. 4Runners and even older Lexus GX470s are holding their value super well, and they're honestly becoming more desirable. And this one, the prices are just now coming down into a range where most people could afford them. When I started looking for vehicles, I thought a 460 was going to be too expensive for me, but as I looked and as used car prices started to come down a little bit, this came down into a range that was pretty reasonable. And, comparing to some similar vehicles like a 4Runner, when looking, 4Runners in my area are actually more expensive than this vehicle was for honestly less features and less nice daily stuff. So it was kind of a no-brainer on that. And, I also considered a GX470, which is the older model, and it is a little bit cheaper, but not a huge amount. And I think the upgrades you get for basically a 10-year newer truck are worth it in this one. And there's other stuff out there. You could potentially find something cheaper, but considering this started as like a $60,000-$70,000 truck, coming down into the low 20s and even the mid-teens for some, I think it's worth it. And I think it should hold its value really well. I would expect that even if I did want to sell it, which I definitely don't right now, if I do someday want to sell it, I don't imagine I'm going to lose too much money on it. So it makes sense. And, for what cars are going for today, for something that's in good condition and should last me a long time, it's really not too expensive of a vehicle. Something newer with a warranty, to be in this price range, you're going to need a little tiny Econobox car. This has got 7 seats, and it's got all the comfort things that I would want it to have. And it is 14 years old, but it's pretty close to the features and the comfort of a new car. So for me, it's worth it. Buying parts for this thing is not going to be a super high expense either, compared to some newer vehicles. Some of the electronic parts are crazy expensive. And, for a German competitor, a Porsche Cayenne, for example, or a Land Rover, some of those parts can be super expensive and super hard to get. This is basically a Toyota, so things are going to be super easy to get, super cheap to get, and no big deal, really. Folks, if you made it all the way through the video, I appreciate it. If you wanted to leave a like, that would be super awesome. And if you want to see more of this, hit the subscribe button, and there will be more Lexus content to come. I do have a Patreon, so feel free to check that out as well if you want to support what I'm doing and help me do some cooler projects in the future. And I don't know what else to say. It's been awesome. See you boneheads next time. I don't know, we'll make some lemonade out of this shit.